Look at that.
Right.
Okay.
Thank you guys for coming to our caregiver conversations for October. I had to think for a minute to figure out what month we were in. I'm staying off camera because my internet stinks tonight, but I have a lovely guest for you all that may be familiar to a lot of you, hopefully is familiar to you, Christy Blakely, who used to be our executive director at Family Voices and is retired, but is such a wealth of experience and knowledge and expertise. We're so excited to have her here tonight. So I'm going to let her take it away and share with you about succession planning tonight. If you have questions as we go along, feel free to throw them in the chat, or you can raise your hand and we can pause and ask and go at answer questions as we go through. We are recording this so we can put it up on our YouTube channel. So don't say anything that you don't want all over the internet publicly available to things.
Right.
So,
and Megan, you're going to check the chat for me?
yes, I will keep an eye on the chat for you, Christy, and stop
Thank
you
you
if
so
you feel
much.
like you need to.
I would assume you all know Family Voices Colorado is a family-led, not-for-profit. We all have family lived experience. I retired in May, and but I want you to know that we provide systems navigation, education, training, advocacy, and policy. We are the Family to Family Health Information Center federally, and we are an affiliate of the national organization, which means we work with other states to make change. I'm Christy Blakely. I have a master's in special ed, had that before I had my firstborn, Lauren, who was a premature birth that didn't go well. So Lauren is a cerebral palsy quad. She's nonverbal, but she's always been strong-willed. And in the strong will, she is funny, but she also has a significant other, Mitch, and they married in the eyes of God, not in the legal system. And so that's why I'm here today, because Lauren at 43 and Mitch at 50 something, I'm not going to even count. Um, we I've been through this. So I'm sharing what I know, I'm sharing what I've learned, and having worked for Family Voices for so many years, um, I have stories to share. So I really want to communicate those for you. Okay, there we go. Okay. As Megan asked me to do this presentation, as I started to do it, I realized it was one of the hardest things I've ever done, the hardest presentation I've ever done. And I'll share why, because I'm very transparent. But I'm going to talk about the elephant in the room. Every parent of a child with special needs, and please put in chat questions, etc. But every child of a as a parent of a child with special needs, you are focused on what if, what happens when I'm not here. So I'm going to share with you some thoughts. I'm going to work through some tools we have available and just really think about that. And my hope is I can do it quickly enough that we can have some great dialogue. So I encourage you, as you think about it, and the two families that shared tonight, an 11-year-old boy, 10-year-old girl, I encourage you to look at the age and stage of the individual and what are their peers doing. So my daughter, Lauren, is 43, and I'm going to share more about that. She lives on her own in a condo with her significant other, Mitch. But there were a lot of times where I was like, most 43-year-olds don't spend all day or all weekend with their parents. So I really challenge you to think about what's that going to look like. And then you can always revisit options through your case manager or families who have gone before. I'm more than willing, I'm not going away anywhere. I'm more than willing to share and help your thoughts. But the hardest accession happen after family's too sick, parents have passed away, or no planning's been done. And I'm going to share some stories today about what that really looks like. I'm going to challenge you to think about what challenges you. Oh, whoop. I don't know how to do this. Wait, back. Okay. Beyond this conversation is really beyond the 18 to 26, which is what we think about it as transition. It's after the financial transition. I'm going to talk about this a little bit so you understand what's going to happen in families, parents drawing Social Security. I'm going to talk to you about long-term planning and what you can do and what tools and models are available. So I'm going to share some stories. Um, if you're just starting out in this journey, you may have your eyes kind of roll into the back of your head a little bit, but hang in there because I really want to share some of these thoughts. So each succession plan is unique to your family. Um, what's right, age and stage to move out? There's no set limit. Your kid may be 30, they may be 40, who knows? But should we retire from our children like a job? And this is a question that's come up to me this week as we met some senior parents in their 70s, met with Medicaid to say, we have an issue here. Families are still caring for children into their 80s in Colorado. And what can we do to transition children, kind of like a job? You retire at 65, whatever, or 67, whatever the time is. How do we do this? So none of this happens quickly. I'm going to tell you right now, but you have to consider your health, your age, your ability, and your plans. So in my situation, I worked and took care of Lauren until she moved in with Mitch. And in my situation, my health, in that I've had 9 spine surgeries, has not stayed up with me. So I'm not as able to care as I used to be. And that has made a major change in our lives. So, does your adult child have siblings? This is really critical because you may have siblings in your world, you may not. You may have siblings that want to be involved 100%, and you may not. In my situation, nope. Um, my other daughter has a full-time job. She does those amazing, cutout cookies that are so pretty, and she has 3 children. So that's not an option. So of course, your adult child's wishes should be absolutely considered. Are they wanting to go to be living with somebody and others that are their peers and kind of experience that, or are they happy in your home? All of those things matter, and we need to listen to them. And I do have a resource later about path planning, which is what we've used by having a facilitator come in with people that know Lauren and Mitch to make decisions about what's their trajectory. What do we want to see long term? I'm going to do a reality check, but transparent. um, the reality is our loved ones are living way longer than they ever did. Part of that has to do with the medical interventions. Part of that has to do with the supports, but we have to realize that they may outlive us. And the reality of that is pretty darn scary. So I'm going to take a deep breath and go, okay, no one can care for their child forever. And I say this because I've learned this with my own health. You shouldn't have to or think you can or should. And there shouldn't be guilt. There should be no guilt in letting your child go. I go into doctor's offices often and have people go, "Oh, you're here. This is amazing." But they're also the same ones that are saying, "Where's mom? Where's dad?" at 43. That's ridiculous. My other doctors don't expect me to come. Why should Lawrence? So I'm really putting that out there to say, letting go is really hard, and I'm going to talk about that. You need to decide how involved you want to be. So, if you have hopes and dreams, and I'm really honest in this, if you have hopes and dreams to travel to, I don't know, Europe or South America or Africa and really experience life beyond your child, then take that into consideration and think about where you want to say, okay, I'm retired from my child. Now I'm going to go do what I want to do. Or financially, I really can't retire from my child. And that is a reality in Colorado. But you need to decide how involved you want to be. Because if you open a PASA, Program Approved Service Agency, again, more information later. That's you're engaged. You're more than engaged. And that's not going away. You've created a business under your child to support them. So think about all of that. And if that's what you really want, I wanted to travel, and we have figured out how to balance travel with a PASA and still make it work. I have fixed Social Security glitches from Africa, honestly. So it is doable. So, what if the what if fear is absolutely real? When you let go of control, you will struggle to regain control, and it's not as easy. But letting go is really hard, and I'm going to go into that. So, but Colorado has so many options. I just really want to talk about this. So, succession
Christy, I
planning.
want to share one
Oh,
of the comments in the chat
great.
too before you get into
Go.
this. Sandy had said she's hoping for her kids to age in place and has been adapting her home to make it accessible. So hopefully caregivers could move in here with them.
Yes, I have a story about that and a model for that.
Awesome. Okay, that was the
Okay.
one I just wanted to share.
Great. No, thank you. Keep doing that. Okay. So it impacts financial. Is that financial misspelled? It looks bad tonight. I don't know why. Anyway, it impacts legal and it impacts housing. So when we talk about letting go, that's what gets impacted. Okay. This is a little information because many people don't know this. So, your adult child is getting at past 18, so not the 11 or 10-year-old, but past 18, they are getting supplemental security income that says they're disabled. And based on the Trump work requirement, it also says they don't need to work. So, they receive a monthly check that's deposited into an account that you typically the kid has the name or adult child has the name and the parent. When the parent begins to draw Social Security, so this is 65 and beyond, you start to draw Social Security, the child flips into Social Security disability as a disabled adult. So as you do that as a parent, you say, I have a disabled adult child, and they flip into SSDI, Social Security Disability Income. This factors in by the funds that they then receive under SSDI are a percentage of the parent who made the most money. And typically that income goes up. then the child becomes eligible for Medicare and Medicaid. And I'm saying that loosely because sometimes it's immediate and sometimes it's 8 to 12 months later. But eventually they become eligible for Medicare first, primary, and Medicaid secondary. Okay, so ways to save. If you have family that want to give your child money, you can open an ABLE account. And this is not a ad. This is Colorado ABLE account, but we need to do this before June of 26, which is upon us soon. I've used this year for Lauren, and I'll give you this example. The parent begins to draw Social Security in January. The adult child becomes eligible for SSDI in January, but it takes SSI 4 months to figure out the child has changed. So now we've got SSI funding for 4 months, and then they want to give us back pay for SSDI, and then they want that money back. The ABLE account, because it's separate and doesn't look at any of the criteria limits for Social Security or SSDI, are the way to save. It's also the way to save long term, for a new computer, or your kiddo is needing something that isn't covered by Medicaid. So this is really in the weeds, and I understand that. If you're rolling, your eyes are rolling, I understand that too. But the Colorado ABLE account is a way that you can use, save money or move money to unrestricted from your bank without any problems. Are there questions so far, Megan? That's really hard stuff.
Not so far. It's all
Okay.
the info that I think it's like, okay, track that. Okay.
Okay.
And then
Yeah.
it starts building and we all start going, ah.
I know. I know this is a really hard presentation. I wish I could pass out whiskey while I'm doing this, but I can't because we're virtual. Anyway, the Special Needs Trust is one building block to a way to manage. So I'm going to give you an example. When we were moving Lauren and Mitch together, um, I was like, if we pass, I want to make sure somebody takes Lauren to a birthday lunch. I want to make sure that she can get slippers when she wants them, whatever those needs are. And so a special needs trust is a way to shelter money out of their name, away from the state services. It costs money to create this, but it is a way of creating some succession. Um, but um, so the funds can be used for entertainment, travel, luxury items, which in today's world is TV, internet, phones, and house maintenance. So it's a way to shelter money that doesn't get taken away. So if you have siblings, that money still will be there after the kiddo passes. So it is a tool we use, and I'm sorry to say it does cost money to create because it requires attorneys.
So I will also put a plug here. We have a whole presentation that talks about ABLE accounts and trusts. It's super in depth with guest speakers and attorneys and all the things that's up on our YouTube channel if you want to read that.
Yay, yay.
There is a question in the chat. Is the ABLE account only after they are adults, or can I open it for under 18?
I believe you can open it under 18.
Yep. They
It's my
have to have
understanding.
disabilities. Their
Yeah.
disability had to start under age 26, I think it is
Yeah,
right
yeah. So they have to be qualified. And, humorously, I've said if I had a dime for every time I've had to prove Lauren's still disabled, I would be a very wealthy woman. So it's a piece of that. Okay, legal transition. Everybody gets stuck on what's a guardian, what's shared decision making. I'm going to tell you this link will lay it out. So I'm going to give you a little example. Um, I was presenting with a woman who did this. She laid this all out, and she was a guardian for a co-guardian for her brother. And she said, nobody understands all the steps, but guardianship is not a given. So, my example is for Lauren, who can make decisions, we have power of attorney, medical, if she can't make a decision or is not available to make a decision, we can make that medical decision. And financial, because she has no concept of money. So those are the two powers of attorney we have. And then we didn't do shared decision making or guardianship. So guardianship is the most restrictive. It says my kid can't do anything, no decision making. I need to be in charge. And that means if that individual wants to go on an X-rated website, they would not be able to because their guardian would not let them. It's very limited. Versus power of attorney is a legal way to kind of slice um, the needs or the specific needs. So if your kiddo is going to go buy whatever's on the internet or gamble or whatever, you may need a financial power of attorney. If they're not safe in the community, you may need a full guardianship. But this link gives you a whole list of most restrictive, I think it's most restrictive to least restrictive. And it's important for you to understand those pieces because we don't all need to go to guardianship. Some of our individuals can make some decisions on their own. And we do a beautiful job, sorry, we do a beautiful job of shared decision making, which is instead of a full attorney involved, like a guardian and courts, a shared decision is a, a, a signed agreement, but it still holds if something were to happen, like the person was picked up for shoplifting, there would still be the shared agreement to understand that this person has needs. Okay, we're going into housing because housing is one of the biggest barriers for our kiddos to succeed from us. So, depending on the waiver, they may have housing funding, but often we don't have it fully, or they're on a waiver that doesn't have it. In Colorado, we have a developmental disability system that uses a host home model. So the host home is, and I'm going to walk you through this because I've done this many, many, many times. The person or company owns the apartment and manages the care. And in this system, you're available to say, I would like to go to a host home. And in this request for funding or request for programming, you lay out what you want. So if you're allergic to cats, you put in that I can't have a house with cats. Or, and I'll give you this example later too, but a woman with religious preferences that could not go to somebody that would not appreciate the Jewish faith. Or you have behaviors that are not okay with small children. So many of these host homes are owned by people. That's where they live, and they're saying, I want somebody to come in and I'll care for them. as the parents, you look at those responses and you get to choose, and then you go visit those places, those placements. It's not going to be your home. It's not going to look as wonderful, and it's not going to be you as the parent. It's going to be somebody else. But at this point, you've said, really want my individual to be somewhere else. I can take them home for the weekend. I can take them home for holidays. I can take them on Sunday afternoon, but I don't want to care from them 24/7. And in this model, the check that comes to them, SSI or SSDI, goes to the agency to pay for the room and board, and then they're given pocket money, and there's a limit of pocket money. I think it's 25 to 35, and I'm sorry I didn't look that up today, but for incidentals, for them to go to a movie or whatever. Under the waiver, the DD waiver, there's a rate that the host home is provided based on the level of care they've created. So in Colorado, we have level 1. They call it CIS support. Help me. Um,
It's the
um,
support intensity scale, but as
thank
of July 1st, it's gone.
Okay,
And
it's
now it's
gone.
the
Okay.
ISLA.
So, but
The
the ISLA scale, and that creates the amount of money they get on a daily rate, and that's what goes to the host home, and then they get this money back. That's their pocket money. If your individual's in a waiver, like the supported living services, or elderly, blind, and disabled, they don't have housing in that. So finding affordable housing is kind of difficult. But here's some models. A grandparent leaves a home or apartment for an individual in a trust. And this is, you kind of plan this out. Grandma's kind of failing, and all those things. But having it work at the same time your kid is transitioning is a little bit of a miracle. So I get that. The family purchases a condo or home, and a Medicaid can have Medicaid recipients can have a house and a car. But in the above, you're going to have your Social Security or SSI coming to you, and then you may pay rent. So that's an option. But not all families have enough funding to go purchase a home or a condo. So let's look at the next one. The reverse host home. The family, like our chat earlier, who's created this house that has ceiling lifts and bathtub care and all the things. And the family, the parents leave the house, go to an apartment, and caregivers come in under the case management system. Again, their funding, their SSI or SSDI, is going to go to the agency, and they'll get pocket money. Co-housing, shared apartments with others, or with or without a disability. So if your kiddo is able-bodied, I'm going to say it that way, walking, talking, they're capable, and they're in college and they meet a buddy and they have an apartment available, you could have your kiddo move in with that person and co-house, and then their SSI or SSDI would go to the rent. you it depends on, and this is what's so hard about succession, it depends on how involved you want to be. How involved do you want to be? So in my situation, we bought a condo or townhouse for Lauren and Mitch, and it's in a trust. and they can live there as long as they're alive, they pay rent to a trust in that way. And but when things happen, like Mitch just took out a door frame, my husband goes over and fixes the door frame. So we're very involved. And at 68, 70, 80, you may not want to be that involved. So I'm just saying, think about that. Think about how hard it is now and what the future might look like. I really
Hey,
encourage
question
you.
in one of these for the reverse host home. You said they pay rent. Who pays rent and to whom?
In the co in the reverse host home, the individual will have their SSI go to the agency that is providing the care. So if it's a case management agency that's funding, or no, it would be like, I don't know how to explain it. The agency that is doing the providing the care, they're paying that agency their SSI or SSDI, and then they get some money back for their pocket money.
Got it.
Is that clear?
Yeah, I think it's the
Somebody's paying rent, though. Somebody's paying rent.
got it.
So in Colorado, and this is really important, today in 2025, um, we have many active models in process. And literally this week, I had Trailhead and Wellspring, and I put this out to some parents of adults and elderly, and I got all these others. So there's all these booming, blooming places that, but most of them are looking for, sadly, the high functioning, walking, talking, in individuals with developmental disabilities, sadly. The Boulder House is looking for an affordable apartment. They're open to whoever. But I would expect in the next year that this is 4 times this size, because the families are really coming out and saying, we don't have a place to send our kids. And this isn't okay. And the average, and this is data, from a group that I'm working with on aging caregivers and family-driven PASAs, the average is over 70 that are still caring for their children. And, I really am like, wait a minute, when do we get to retire? When do we get to travel? When do we get to, and I encourage you to be not selfish, and not guilty, but to say, I will do this until X, and then I can't do it anymore. And we're going to figure out the next steps, because expecting yourself to live and do this forever is really unfair. It really is unfair to the individual with disabilities. It's unfair to you all as a family. Okay, I'm going to go through this really fast because most people know what this is, but
Can I pause and
yep,
ask you a
yep,
question back on the legal stuff too?
yep.
Cindy asked, so in shared responsibility, is the parent taking blame if the child were to get in legal problems like arrested or something to
In
that?
shared decision making, they understand the individual has a disability. And no, the family is not taking responsibility. But if you have a kiddo that's going to go buy a sailboat from somebody that comes to your door, then do financial power of attorney. And
Awesome.
then you're really free and clear. Are you following?
Yep, I think so.
Okay.
All right,
Okay.
that's good. Keep going.
Okay. Program approved service agencies. I'm doing this only because it's a barrier in our system today. So I created a PASA for Lauren, and you can look into it. We have 7 individuals that are on SLS and are level 6. Um, when I asked my husband, what should we name this PASA? He said, K. And so we named it K PASA as kind of a joke. But it is, I hope you're, giggling. It is the way that we are getting people to provide the services. So your PASA is your connection to Medicaid contracting. And so if you have a kiddo that gets community uh, support, or help me.
Supported community connections.
Thank you. It didn't come to me. Okay. Um, thank you, Megan. Um, then you have to have a PASA that is connected to Medicaid in order to provide that. And there are all these others. So PASA is really important, especially in the CES waiver and some of the other waivers. So that is the way we provide these home and community-based services, through these waivers. And the PASA is the contracted Medicaid provider. These are the services they provide. So they're the contracted Medicaid provider to bill for mentorship, personal care, behavior, all of that. And you have to have one, depending on which waiver, in order to get the services, to get funded through the services. So the PASA is your connection or your funder. Um, and in today's world, we have 833 PASAs. Though that has gone up from 746 in January. So crazy, crazy, crazy how many PASAs we have. But they have to carry liability. They're going to bill twice monthly, but they're responsible to hire and train. They're also responsible to have surprise audits from the Colorado Department of Public Health and Environment. They're your management organization. So when I realized that people were going to take 20 to 40% of Lauren's, my daughter, her funding in order for us to connect, I was like, no, I want that funding. So I opened my own PASA. And that's what many families are doing. But you have to realize there's expenses. It's not cheap, because you're responsible for insurance, you're responsible for a business in the state of Colorado. So it is not cheap. So I really warn you to say, not everybody should do one, and maybe contact some of these 833 PASAs and say, how much do you take? Would you take less? How do we do this? Because, it's crazy. But we're having conversations now with the state of Colorado to say we have an aging caregiver crisis, with families that are running their own PASAs and they're in their 80s caring for an individual, and there's no stop in sight. And that's concerning. And that's what we're all about. So I put the link there for how you get to the list. I'm
Christy,
talking
Cindy
about,
has a question for you.
yep,
She
yep.
said, "Is the PASAs like the Medicaid buy-in? We've never gotten Medicaid because we feel it's them to pay for Medicaid for only certain things on their list. When I can just use the money, I would pay them and then buy the item or service itself."
Wait a minute. I didn't follow all that. They're not on Medicaid, or they're on the buy-in?
Sounds like they're not on Medicaid because the only option was buy-in and it didn't seem worth it to them.
Okay, so we probably need to talk with them about the level of care and need. If they're only saying buy-in, I'm not buying that. I would want to talk to that family and figure out their other options. But the buy-in is not a PASA. The buy-in is Medicaid. PASA is providing the home and community-based services that are under the waiver services.
Awesome.
Okay.
Keep going.
I'm calling this the art of letting grow instead of go, because letting go grow is hard. You want your kiddo to exceed. You want your kiddo to grow up and launch. Um, our kiddos don't necessarily launch. And so it makes it super hard. But I'm going to tell you, letting go was the hardest thing I ever did. Why? Because after you've let go of the control, getting it back is really hard. And so when things went wrong early on with Lauren living with Mitch and in this townhome, I was like, if I was every day there, I would know what was going on, but I don't. So it's really scary. I'm going to tell you it's really scary, but it's also very worthwhile. Um, because they feel a sense of accomplishment that they're living on their own. Um, but knowing and communicating is really important, and having a vision is really important. So I'm going to talk to you about the tools we used, but I'm going to I'm going to whoop, I'm going to blow this up. I am going to blow this up. Whoop. I did this for Lauren. Uh, and obviously, this is a one pager that helped caregivers and providers understand Lauren. Okay, so she graduated high school, she had a job as a contractor, she had goals and dreams, and it helps providers to see our kids separate from their disability and what can be. So some of this is aged. It's not as updated, but it goes into Lauren's premature birth and all that. But it also shows her accomplishments, talks about her medical supplies and her equipment, talks about the funding streams we've used over the years. And it also shows caregivers and providers, etc., all of the opportunities she's had, the struggles, as well as the myriad of case managers we've had. So it was kind of a work in progress, but all the medical procedures, it helps them in one spot understand all that has gone before them, so that they're not like, whoa, what happened? We've all been there. Like, you're in this doctor's appointment and they say, how was the birth? And it's like, okay, that was 43 years ago. Let's talk about something else. So helping us move forward was part of my goal. But I also use this with advanced nurse degree students to understand that Lauren has struggles, but she also has hopes and dreams. There is a piece of her that should be shared. So there you go. Oop, now I can't get beyond that. Oh, there. Okay, I'm going to give you some stories. Any questions so far? I'm going to stop quick.
I think there's one other that talks about. I'm just going to read it. So Sandy says it is unfair that, referring back to your that having to take care of your kids
Yep.
forever. But finding respite for a few hours or a day or an overnight now when they are children is near impossible. How on earth are we to find permanent caregivers for our kids when we are old and decrepit or just too dang tired to do it anymore?
So my answer is there is hope, because this week we had a conversation with the leadership at Healthcare Policy and Financing saying this is an issue we need to address. So my hope is that the generation of 10 and 11-year-olds will see a difference in the systems to address this and assist them to let go. But it also takes, as I did, a goal of no, she's not going to live with me forever. And that's a hard step to take, but you have to do it. You have to do it. You have to say. And my husband and I, they've been together 12 years, and my husband and I still don't go to the store together. We divide and conquer kind of thing because that's what we did always with Lauren. It was like somebody stayed home, somebody went to the store, somebody stayed home, somebody went. It was always a divide and conquer, and we still haven't let that go um, after this many years. So my hope is that we can, as parents, oh, stories is so wrongly spelled. Sorry. Just dawned on me. But my hope is that we can make change happen before you guys are old and decrepit, if that's how you want to. I prefer to say, if you were milk, I'd sniff first. Anyway, that was a humor. Anyway, okay. So here's some stories that are real stories. I've taken all the information out, but they're real stories. Um, the parents are in their 80s, communicate they would love to take a trip, now having medical issues. But the adult son who has disabilities um, has been working at a store chain and has a 401k, got transportation from case management agency, but has no Medicaid, nothing else. And he's worked as a bagger for 35 years. So he's built a nest egg. So he has money. So he's not qualifying for Medicaid. Um, the parents are worried about the house they own. They're in their 80s. They're starting to have medical issues. He doesn't get health care after he retires, which he's close to. And he's starting to show some signs of regression. The family has no legal guardianship or anything else in place. So we're starting basically from square one. Um, the oops. Um, so how do you buy down that money that's his nest egg? Like, do you have him buy the house from them and pay the rest off or whatever? Um, do you get him on the buy-in? So these are the questions that, as a family voices person, I used in this actual story. Um, we used the Able account as a way to move some funding from his savings. Um, and then again, he can own a house, he can own a car. So he ended up buying a car for the family so that he used some more money. We were trying to buy down some of that nest egg because otherwise he wouldn't qualify for services. So we really had to work at helping the family because what they'd set up isn't viable long term if they passed. And then where's the house and all of that? There was one sibling not involved. So that's one of the stories, and I'm going to give you a couple more. Um, Parent is 73, just was diagnosed with stage 4 cancer. I'm sorry, my hands are very arthritic and I hit keys I don't mean to hit. So the T doesn't exist there. Communicates no plan to die. So the parent called us and said, yes, I was just diagnosed with stage 4 cancer. I'm not going to die. And we all think that I'm not going to die. The reality is we are. At some point we will. And we have to, as people, understand that's going to happen. So adult child has a developmental disability and physical disabilities. They are in a day program, but Nothing's in place and no case management involved. So now we're not only worried about the surgery and who's going to come in and support this individual while the parent's gone in the hospital, but also get some things in place because of the long term what it looks like. So getting some legal involved is important there, and also getting the case management agency to understand that there's a respite need for long term while the parent is recovering, etc. But also getting this kiddo who doesn't have funding onto a Medicaid waiver and then possibly moving them before the parents died to a host home or some other option so that the parent and the kiddo will be able to connect with each other prior to the death, and the kiddo will be established, because the worst case scenario is the parent dies and the kiddo isn't involved, doesn't have anything in place, and now we're reestablishing, right? I mean, none of us like change. This is part of who we are. And so figuring out, is there any kind of a social network, but also what can we do to make sure that this individual can get set up in a host home, visit the parent while they're recovering, but also still have a place to live and know that's their long-term care. The elderly parent these are all real stories. The elderly parent passes away in another state. The adult with disabilities was living with the parent in a nursing facility, but was asked to leave upon parents' death. And this happened during COVID. And the sibling is in another state, had no plans to have this individual with them. There was no planning with the parent upon death. So now we have an aging adult child with a developmental disability and physical disability. We move them to another state, Colorado, and they live with their sibling until they become eligible for Medicaid waiver, which took about a year and 3 months. So because we have emergency slots, that was the only option we had, that they lost their primary caregiver so they could get on the waiver. And then um, and then teaching the sibling who has no knowledge of developmental disabilities and all the systems how things work, what's going to happen, and finding a place. This case also had the conflict of religion. And as a person that was Jewish, we had to find somebody that would take them, that didn't have because we have wars going on, any kind of needs. And in my mind, that was similar, honestly, to an allergy or something. But we had to be very careful where we placed this adult person. So we were able to place them, and they put out RFPs. Who in the host home system wants to take this person? These are the needs. This is what they need every night or day. This adult who is aged also has dementia now. And so we're dealing with that. And so needs are increasing rather than decreasing. But we were able to find a location, a home, and everything's going swimmingly, which always makes me happy. But it takes a lot of work. And there's nobody in our state system at Medicaid that does this kind of, how do we figure this out? The barriers, I'm going to tell you.
Christy, can I
Oh,
ask you a
yep.
question real quick? Yep. Can you talk more about what an emergency slot is for the
Mhm.
DD and what they're for?
So there are several criteria, and I've had this discussion this week for an emergency slot in the developmental disability waiver. And that means the caregiver, the primary caregiver, is gone, whether they've died or they're not willing or whatever. That is one criteria, and it's not an and this and that. It's one of these criteria. And I confirmed this with Bonnie Silva at Medicaid this week. If they've lost their house, so they were, renting and they couldn't make rent, whatever, and now they've lost their house, that is a criteria to get on the developmental disability waiver if they're qualified based on the developmental disability. So there's criteria to move them to the front of the list, if you want to say it that way. We don't want people with disabilities on the streets,
Yeah.
developmental disabilities on the streets. Anyway, did that
We're very
answer that?
grateful, yes, and we're very grateful that there are emergency slots on the DD waiver, but it's
Mhm.
ideal to have other things in place so you're not left panicking trying to get
That's
that
correct.
emergency slot.
And this is why we're having this conversation tonight, is because we as parents need to plan ahead. We need to know, what's going to happen. And my brilliant mother, sweet as she was, she said we should live our lives backwards and then we'd know what to plan for. And I love that brilliance, but that's not the reality. And I don't have a crystal ball. So making a plan, setting it out there is really what we have in today's world. And hoping we're doing the right thing is what we can ask as parents.
We have
Um,
one more question in the chat too.
uh-huh.
So, if a sibling knows they will be taking over care but doesn't know anything about the system for services, how or where can they learn? Are there classes they can take? It took the mom 4 years as a parent to learn just the basics, and so it feels like a big hill to climb.
Yeah, no, it is a huge hill. And Lauren does have one sibling. She has three small children and a full-time job. And she may take over someday, but she's not ready today. And we hope, but sharing as much as you can per life experience is really important, to especially to initiate the sibling to understand, it's not just it doesn't just happen. There's a lot of care and feeding of caregivers. We have caregivers with Lauren and Mitch that have been there 13 years. It's amazing. But part of that is care and feeding and all the other things. Um, okay, let me quick get through this. As I put this together, and this was one of the hardest presentations I've ever put together in my career, of many years. Anyway, um, we have a lack of affordable housing. We have a lack of accessible affordable housing, and we have a lack of transportation as well as knowledge. So if your kiddo's in that high school transition, having them learn transportation is something you should put as a goal, because if they're in a city and they can learn the transportation and do it, if they're physically and mentally capable of that, then that's what we should do. Because transportation becomes a barrier if we don't have the van and all the stuff. Anyway, the financial means, and what I mean by that is, say your kid's going to move out tomorrow. You and I both know that you have to put a down payment, you have to put a deposit, you have to put have to pay the first month's rent. That is a big chunk of change if you haven't planned for it. So having some financial is critical, even if your kid's going to go to an apartment or whatever. In Colorado, we have the unique problem that families rely on the income of the child, adult child, for mortgage, etc. And if that's the case, then that needs to be taken into account. Um, there are many families, especially the ones with cultural differences, that are like, no, I'm going to take care of this kid forever. And I was very clear about, nope, that's not going to happen. We need to figure out another alternative. So figuring out the adult child's willingness is also a piece of it. You know, if your kiddo is like, no, I want to live with my buddies and I don't want to be with you, and why would I want to be with you? Then you're going to have an easier way. But the changes, the issues, the family dynamics are all players in all of this. So the case manager that you're involved with may or may not have knowledge in this. And so I would say, ask for families that have gone before. Get on the social media and say, has anybody transitioned their kid from home, and what did it look like? Also, if your kiddo is all set with employment or day program or whatever, you have to take into account the location. My daughter is in Littleton, in an area that, we chose, and that's great. But the cost of rent there is so high and not really sustainable. So it's an issue that we continue to deal with. One of the things we've used over these years is the PATH program, and Lori Parker and Ruth Newell are amazing at this. You can contact them to have them do a PATH plan. The PATH plan is putting together a group of your dream team for your kiddo. The PATH plan is having those people come together and say, what are your goals? What's your goal for life? What's your, like, what's going to happen in 5, 10, 15 years? It's really hard if you have a 10-year-old right now to be thinking that long term, but it happens so fast. And we needed those people to come together because my husband and I were not the only thought people, and that helped us move Lauren and Mitch to the place they needed to be. Okay. We also, I would encourage you to look at GOT transition. It is very overwhelming. I'll warn you right now, but GOT transition is a federal program that was created to talk about how do we move kids beyond adolescence into adulthood. And there's all sorts of components of it, and there's lots of tools there. I would encourage you to look. And that is the last part. And I'm 6 minutes over. So now I'm going to shut up and listen to questions.
That's right. We ask questions throughout too, so you're good. I just put the link to the path people in the chat, so hopefully you
Oh,
can
good. Thank you.
do that. What other questions do you all have? Feel free to raise your hand if you've got more to put in the chat. If you think you put it in the chat and I missed it or we didn't talk about it enough, flag that for us.
How's Jerry doing? I see him, and I know this has been a hard one for you. Am I allowed to ask that? You have to go off mute. Yeah,
Yeah.
there you
Yeah.
are.
Hi. Yeah. Hi, Christy. I'm good. That was a nice presentation. Thank you. Yeah, our little girl's 10, developmentally disabled.
Mhm.
And yeah,
Does
we're
she
just,
walk and talk?
yes, she does.
Mm.
Yeah. So and she's progressing. So that's, yeah. So, I mean, everything's great, but our biggest concern is when we're not here.
Yeah, the what ifs.
Yeah. So,
Absolutely, Jerry. Absolutely. So the housing stuff that I shared,
mhm,
most all of that are for high functioning kiddos with developmental disabilities that are walking and talking. I mean, my daughter is in a wheelchair, nonverbal, and lots of medical, and that's not what those systems are looking for. I'm hoping parents will come up with some of that, but for right now, but you
yeah,
know, golly, you're 8 years from 18 and then 21 through transition.
mhm,
So you've got a minute, but thinking about this now, I'm so proud of you. I'm so happy. That is exactly what we want and need,
mhm.
are parents like you that are really planning.
Yeah, one thing you mentioned a few times was when you give up control, it's hard to get it back.
Mhm.
Did you mean that from your own standpoint or from a legal standpoint?
From my own standpoint,
Okay.
you know, once you have stepped away, and still doctors are like, "Where's your mom?" At 43, but it's hard, even in high school, to create. Um, I'm gonna go out there. One of the things the school wanted to know was, could Lauren handle somebody not showing up if she was expecting a ride and they didn't show up? And so she's at the mall. So we set this up in high school, and I was like, you know, you're expecting her to go to somebody in the mall and say, my ride didn't show up and she's nonverbal. Anyway, it
Yeah,
it became quite the thing. And I was like, how do you safely test that they will know how to react? And it's easier when they're younger to try these things than when they're older, especially in our world the way it is today.
sure, sure.
So, yeah, so letting go is hard. And, now it's when something happens, it's like, well, catch me up. What happened and who said what? And you have to backtrack to figure it all out. And that's hard, but at the same time, I'm so proud of her for adulting the way she is.
Yeah, I bet. I bet. Okay. Okay. Yeah, there's a lot to think about.
There's so much to think about.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
starting, I mean, you can start now, Jerry. Let her, or if she can, order her own food at a restaurant.
Mhm,
Start to engage with people without you stepping in will
mhm.
help her become more independent.
Sure.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
It's super hard though, because it's like we want to jump in and we want to do and we want to fix it all. And we have to like step back so they can learn how to engage
Mhm.
and what's good and what's bad engagement.
Yeah.
I'll tell you a funny story just because we have a minute. Um, they put Lauren in a high school class that was a social class about, what ifs. And she was with a group of kiddos that had developmental disabilities. And they said, would you, if somebody told you to steal a car, would you steal a car? And Lauren, of course, looked at them like, what? And in her mind, she's going, well, it'd have to be accessible van and it'd have to be, all the
Yeah.
things. And so she's thinking like, you're nuts. And and they were trying to work with kiddos that would be easy prey for
Mhm.
kids that were doing bad stuff. Anyway, it was very funny because she's like, well, that doesn't make any sense to me.
Yeah.
So, yeah, we have to think from that perspective.
Mhm. Okay. Okay.
Nice dialogue. I think we have Victoria.
Yep, Victoria, go ahead.
I actually do have a question. Our family plan is and has always been that the boys will live at home, but like independently. So once we're done with the medical stuff that's happening right now, our family and their dad is going to pitch in and we're going to buy some land. And obviously have a house on it. But then we have allowed the boys already, they're 13, to pick out tiny houses. They get to design their own tiny houses. And so then
Perfect.
we'll have the tiny houses on the land, and that will be their home. So they gain independence, but I'm still there for all the medical things and all the stuff that come with it.
Right.
So that's how our family has decided to meet that need of independence, but also making sure that they're safe. And I am curious, I know about the trust thing and we're working on that too. But do you, if it's on land that the family owns, and I die, and all of it will go into a trust that will be governed by my adult daughter, do we roll those houses, those tiny houses too, over into that trust?
That's how
Or
the
would it be
trust is. Yeah. So, Victoria, I'm not an attorney. I just slept at a Holiday Inn Express. But um, what you would do is write those tiny houses into that trust and until those individuals die, like if that's what you want it to look like. So you write it into the trust the way you want it to look. Does that make sense?
Yeah, okay, yeah. I just wasn't sure because that you said the one house, one car thing.
Yes, each individual Medicaid recipient, one house, one car. So you could put one tiny house in one of your kiddos' names and one in another, and they could have that, you know, forever until they pass.
Okay. Okay, yep, that's what I was looking for because once you said that I was wondering if that would clash with what we're
No,
doing.
not at all.
Okay.
Not at all. Mm-mm. Are they going to work from, oh,
One of my sons will be incapable of doing anything of that
okay.
nature. At the age of 13, he's got about the development of a 6 to 7 year old.
Okay.
My other one would be capable of working if we can manage his aggression and violent tendencies that we're
Okay.
working on right now. So one
Great.
of them would be probably, I would say probably be able to work somewhat, yes.
Okay. I mean, that's amazing. Wonderful. And Cindy says, Victoria, that is our plan too.
Yeah, I saw a lady on TikTok actually. She shares about her son and their life, and she explained, they wanted the same thing. They wanted him to have independence, but they needed to make sure because of his extensive needs. And I was like, that's like a brilliant idea. I love that idea. So I got it from some gal off TikTok.
Yep. No, I mean, because our kiddos can't like, oh, this is what I want. Many of them can, but we need to work with them to say, okay, what's reasonable? What will work? And how do we create that dream? This is a really hard topic. I want you guys to finish this and give yourself some space. This is hard stuff. I mean, I've never talked on this in all 40 years of my career. And it was hard to create because it's so unique to the family and it's so unique to the individuals. And I had to push the envelope a little bit. So some of this may have hurt a little bit to hear. And I get that. This wasn't an easy thing for me to create. I felt the hurt as I created it.
And I'm so grateful that you did it, Christy, because it comes so much better coming from you who has lived and is living this than just theory from me or somebody else. So
and I'm going to put that out there that in today's world, um, it's a challenge as well.
Sure.
That we all are fearful for our people and what's going to happen to systems. Oh,
Absolutely.
yay.
All
One of
right,
my
Corinne.
favorite people is asking a question.
Go ahead, Corinne.
I'm just gonna go ahead and assume one of your favorite people is me.
That's what I said. That's what I meant.
So Maddie, our daughter, is 11. So Jerry, I feel akin to you. Um, she's super social. Like I think if she was given the opportunity today, she'd move out to live with friends and other people.
Mhm.
But something that wasn't discussed today, or at least I missed it if it was, are group homes. And from the meeting on, I think it was Monday, all of a sudden I got real scared. So we have a little bit of time. Um, what do you think group homes might be able to look like in the future? And why did you leave it off of today's talk?
So thank you. I appreciate you asking that question. Our case management system, and I thought I had a slide on this, so my bad. Um, our case management system today is really more proactive about host homes, which means somebody owns the house, you have your child or individual adult live with those people. And group homes are less recommended. And again, this week, talk to Colin and uh, um, wow, Silva, Bonnie, about this exact thing that host homes versus group homes. Group homes are less suggested, they're closing, etc. Part of it, they say, is cost and overhead, and they're not able to make the costs work. Your social little butterfly would do better in a group home with 2 or 3 people that were similar than a host home where they might be one of only 1 or 2 with caregivers. Um, so when you look at that, I think, wait a minute, are there kiddos that she's matriculating with, going through school with, that might be good people that you could combine and do kind of a host home, but a manufactured, organized host home out of the case management with those individuals through the case management agency. So I encourage you to not stop dreaming because, group homes are they're just coming the thing of the past. And they're primarily because there's been some abuse, primarily because there have been some bad history there. But having control of, gosh, we could get this apartment and 3 girls could live together and that would be great. And, the parents would take turns on weekends managing, etc. Those are the kinds of dreams and ingenuity that the system may require. I hope not I hope not in, 20 years. And one of the things I'm going to encourage you to do is really think about what's the age and stage that the kiddo is going to be ready to go, and you're ready to let them go. So I have a friend that they just bought a house. They're going to rent it for a couple of years. Their son is about 26 and disabled, and they're hoping, their goal is that that's going to be his house with caregivers, etc. But they had the means to do that. And so if you don't have the means, it may be an apartment, but you could still facilitate others to join you in doing this. but sadly, group homes are kind of a thing of the past. And that was part of the conversation with Bonnie and Colin yesterday was, at Medicaid, like, how are we going to do this? And what are we going to do? And their parents that are really struggling. I hope I answered your question.
Yeah, I mean, there's not
Hard
enough.
stuff. This
Yeah.
is really hard stuff. Go eat chocolate. No, this is real, or have a drink. This is really hard stuff.
Yeah. I wish that it didn't require so much ingenuity, individual ingenuity, that there would be more options that it's not going to be easy, even if there was something just to sit in, like slip into. So
Mhm.
I wish
No,
that it
this
could
is
be a little easier.
You're absolutely right. And this is exactly the conversation we had with Bonnie and Colin about, the systems have to step up because they're not stepping up. They're leaving families to do it all. And some of us do it because there isn't an option. Some of us, I mean, Lauren was independent through school, high school, all the stuff. And like for her to go somewhere where she didn't have a say in what her day looked like, it wasn't part of the dream or the thought. Hard stuff, I'm telling you.
You've got many thanks in the chat for
Great. That's wonderful.
addressing such a difficult topic. So
yeah, no, this is hard. And I appreciate those that hung in.
yeah, it's interesting because when my kiddo was really little, we had to work really hard at not projecting too far into the future. That when I had like a 2-year-old, I was like panicking about what adulthood was going to look like. And at that point, we didn't really have enough information to know kind of what it was going to look like. But now that we're a teenager, now it's like, oh, we have enough information that we actually need to start planning and thinking about these things and processing through them now, so that when as the ages and stages come, we're able to think about it more. So there was a point when it was like, don't think about the future that much, and now it's do think about the future more than we did before.
Well, I think we all have good days and bad days. I mean, there are days where I can handle the kids staring at Lauren, and there are days I just can't. And I think we just have to give ourselves grace to handle it when we can and move ourselves forward. But yeah, we had a dream, and then Lauren and Mitch happened, and that was totally unexpected. Expected. Wow. I mean, just blew me away. She met him online. Anyway, and okay, we'll try this. I mean, it's not like they can check up, they're both CP quads. Anyway, enough of that. But it is kind of a success story in that they live together, they're not alone, all the things are good. We have amazing staff, all of that.
You've got Sandy in the chat, so she definitely suggests to make friends with other special needs, medically fragile parents, so you can work
Yep.
on these things together and bounce ideas.
Yes. And before they leave transition, find out the names and addresses and everything of everybody, or create a social group of the transition friends so that they have friends beyond when school ends or transition ends. I didn't do that. I'm suggesting you do that. Victoria has her hand up.
Go ahead.
So I'm gonna approach a very difficult subject.
Oh,
It's always in a box in my head, but I have never opened it.
uh-oh.
And I think it's probably the scariest, and I have absolutely no doubt there's a lot of parents that have the same fear, but we don't talk about it, we don't approach it, and I wouldn't know how, even with all of my education. With my one son being so aggressive, he got charges pressed against him 2 years ago for being at a park, and a kid was throwing rocks at him, and he
Mhm.
hit the kid. And because my son was bigger and stronger, he left a bruise and the mom freaked out and pressed charges. I had
Yep.
to see my 11-year-old autistic son go through the court system, do a diversion program, and was threatened that if he caused any more harm in 2 years, he would face juvie, but he can't even provide himself a shower. Like he's very fully dependent. And so my fear is always constant of how to let him out in public, in society, in social situations, knowing he's got a hairpin trigger, knowing it's been that way his whole life. He was expelled from school multiple times for getting in scuffles and fights and things. And I hear the stories about, a disabled older child that looks like a grown adult, their life being taken by the police or whatever. Or if he goes to juvie, there's nobody there. Nobody can provide his care. There's a reason why he has CNA hours.
Yes.
And
So
so,
Victoria, I've had clients be picked up because of rock throwing or whatever, and functioning at a 6-year-old level. And there are ways that we can, with the system, ask for our individuals to be separated from the congregate. Megan may be able to put better language around that, but getting guardianship immediately is really critical, so that you can show, and that will keep him sheltered a little bit. But yeah, I would be worried too. And I would be thinking about how we can make this work. But I would get guardianship.
is there a way to, God, I don't know how to say this. Is there a way to protect your child in a way that I don't know how to say. How do you
No.
allow that child to be independent, to be productive, to gain friends, to be in social situations without the constant everyday fear that my child could go to jail
No,
because he got
I hear you. I totally hear you. And we'd like to bubble wrap our kiddos, and that just isn't going to work. But helping him manage behaviors, etc., in the community is also part of it. But, like, I wouldn't take him to a protest. I mean, there's things that trigger and things that don't. And I think you know that best. I mean, you're
yes.
a specialist in this kiddo. So how do you give him experience to community without triggering things? And I think that's part of how you begin how you proceed as he ages.
I put in
And
the
Can I
chat.
give one example and you let me know if it sounds right since you've
Yeah.
got a lot more education than I do?
I did sleep at a Holiday Inn Express. I'm sorry, I'm joking. Tell me, ask.
I started letting him attend soccer camps this summer.
Mhm.
One of his biggest triggers is being touched or hit. Huge trigger
Okay.
for him. You touch me, you hit me, I'm knocking your block off. So he loves soccer, and I had held him from any engagement of that because I thought it's going to be a trigger, it's going to cause problems. So 6 months before I let him attend his first one, I reiterated with him every single day behaviors, and we talk about accountability and responsibility, accountability, responsibility. And so when he did his very first camp, he was really angry. They are aggressive. It's an aggressive game. They push, they kick, it's all kinds of crazy. And it was every day of, you need to talk, you need to express your feelings, you need to talk to your coach, and you need to remember this is a game. They are not doing this to be a bully or to hurt you on purpose.
Right.
And
Those
so
experiences are huge, Victoria. That's
I
huge that
yeah.
you're doing that at this age and stage. So he's learning before he's a full-size man and whatever.
So does that feel
putting
like I'm
exactly
putting
what you
him
should
into
do.
danger? Is that me putting him in danger, or is that me being proactive?
That's being proactive. In my mind, that's being proactive. You're giving him, this is what I was trying to say earlier with the mall example. Giving experiences that have consequences, etc., as they're young is so much easier and safer than if you go all the way to adulthood and said, okay, just go. I mean, do it in bite-sized pieces as they're young, and if they're conversational, like what would happen if Sally's mom didn't come get you at the game or whatever, but figuring it out is critical. I mean, part of it is our kiddos are so structured, right? So you get to adulthood and you've got this, adorable person that's 26 and he's waiting for a bus to come and he knows the bus is going to come, but he's never been by himself. He's never had non-structured time. He doesn't know how to handle waiting for the bus to come. We have to create those in our community when they're little to start experiencing that. I mean, yeah, it's just hard. It's hard. There's so many pieces to this.
Also throw out, I put in the chat the one for Boulder County, but there's ones for a lot of different areas, but it's called the Blue Ribbon or Blue Envelope Project, which is fairly new, but it's designed to give some opportunity for police and individuals with developmental disabilities to communicate better. So it's like an envelope they can have on them that when they run into police or police see they have this envelope, then they can hand it to them and it has some info on like, this is my disability, here's how you should treat me. And it's not perfect, but it's at least something. It's some
It is
sort
something.
of tool.
People are also doing ID bands that have a GPS in them. And the ones that I've seen are individuals that use their phone as a communicator. And it says, don't take my phone away. I communicate this way, etc. And so doing something like that to say, I don't have, I don't know, I need help or I don't function as everybody else. Something.
Some sort of identifier.
Yes, some
Right.
sort of identifier.
Whew. We're
This
5
is
minutes over.
hard
It is
stuff. I'm
hard.
telling you again. I mean, this is hard stuff and really deep in the weeds. I don't know if I'll ever be asked back, but it's it's been a pleasure to share what I've experienced and what I know, and all of the people that I've engaged with over the years to make this work.
Thanks, Christy. It's so good to see you and very much appreciate your wisdom and experience and all the things and willingness to talk about the hard things. So
Yep.
thank you all for coming and joining us this evening. Go have some chocolate or a drink or
Thank
go
you.
take a bath.
Yes.
Take
Chocolate,
care of yourself.
something that makes you happy.
Yes.
Yeah.
All right.
Thank you,
Thanks
Christy.
all. Have a good night.
Thank you, Christy.
Welcome.